Hello everyone, my name is Mark, I'm your driver, and today we're going for a spin in this. This is a 2023 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. It's painted in Celestite, which is sort of like a bluer, trending color version of gunmetal gray. It's sitting on tiny 15-inch wheels with 195 section tires, so much rubber there to keep you insulated from the road, from potholes, from blowouts. And yeah, I think this looks pretty good. I think the fender flares are nice, especially at the back, but I do find that the wheels sit a little bit too far into the body, so maybe some spacers are in order. Anyways, let's go and check out the trunk. We are going to start in the trunk because the trunk is where most people feel the compulsion to buy a CUV, and I know it's dark, but you can see that there's so much space. I'm 6'3" and I can barely reach all the way in here. There's a tremendous amount of room. You've got space on both sides for stuff. No underfloor storage, it's just sort of a fix-a-flat kit. But in terms of storage, this is all of the space that you would realistically want and need. Now, moving on to the rear seats, we are going to find lots of hard plastics on the door card, but you do get some nice soft padding for your armrest, some more plastic, and plastic down below. It is a very hard back seat, although it is reasonably spacious. So, as you can see, I'm 6'3", sat behind myself at 6'3", and I can fully fit my feet underneath the seat in front, which is great. It means that the floor is low enough and the seat is high enough that I can actually have the legroom that is advertised. And the seat scoops out nicely. I can fit my legs back here. Headroom is okay. You do get an armrest, padded and comfortable. You've got cup holders, 2 Type-Cs to charge your phone. Like I said, padded on the armrest. Door is a bit on the scratchy side. The window switches look a little bit generic and blank, but overall, this is not a bad place to be back here. You've got like an integrated headrest, and if we scooch over to the other seat that's in a more reasonable, conventional driving position, you can see that I have plenty of knee room. My feet fit all the way underneath the seat in front, and if I slouch down, I just have a ton of space back here. Not as much headroom as in the Corolla Cross, but I prefer the seating position as opposed to a crossover where I find it's just very upright. This is a little bit more relaxed, and I kind of like that more. Now, getting into the front seats of the Corolla, you will find that this is a very big, very hard piece of plastic, so you are just gonna wanna watch your leg there. But now that we're inside, we can see that this is a pretty familiar place to be at this point. There's not really any surprises. This hasn't been updated in a little bit, so as far as design goes, it is looking a little bit long in the tooth, just as far as sort of the bigness goes. There's just a lot going on, and it makes the interior feel a little bit smaller than it actually is. But the plus side is that you do get great physical controls. So you get great, fairly clicky controls for your climate, some nice sort of chromed buttons for your different controls there. The infotainment beeps very, very loud, and it is the smaller unit, but it works pretty well. You can see all your different things, your trip information, your energy flow. You do unfortunately have to pay the subscription for things like navigation, but if you are just using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, that shouldn't be a huge deal for you. In the center, you do have your digital gauge cluster, which does give you some different settings. So we can go over to meter style. You've got casual, smart, which is sort of your default Toyota gauge style, and sporty, which is a white background, which is kind of Lexus-esque. So I think I'm going to keep it as that. And then if we go down here to dial type, you can actually change it from, well, the hybrid system. You can turn it off, or you can give yourself a tachometer, which shows your revs. And so I will be doing that because I quite like to see what the actual engine is doing. And of course, we will put the fuel economy on the screen so that you guys can see what the car is doing while it's doing it. The energy flow will be up here. And just overall, this interior is a nice place to be. It's nothing special, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You've got 2 different sizes of cup holders. You've got minimal use of gloss black plastic, although it is kind of in a high traffic area. So if you are really bothered about that like I am, you might just have to polish it or PPF it. Physical controls for your heated seats, although they are kind of far away, as is this phone holder here. It's a little bit cramped getting in and out of there, and I could see you maybe forgetting that in the car or something. But overall, the interior materials are decent. You've got more scratchy plastics on the door card, and to see how soft everything actually is or isn't, we've got our durometer here. So on the door card, that is hard. We are gonna see a 100 because that is very, very hard. On the dashboard, we're gonna get a 55. On the upper dash, we're gonna get a 60. Upper gauges, about a 65. Vinyl steering wheel, about an 80. This plastic down here, 100. So yeah, your armrest and your dashboard and the things that you're gonna be interacting with are all very soft. They're in the sort of mid 40s to 50s, whereas your harder plastics, which surprisingly aren't on the dash, they're all just sort of here and on the door cards, those are gonna be very, very hard. So yeah, that's a 100. Now, before we get this thing on the road, I do quickly want to talk about the powertrain because it can sometimes be a little bit confusing in Toyota hybrids. Under the hood, you've got no engine cover to contain this immensely powerful 138 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque. Now, that's only half the story because Toyota doesn't quote their combined torque figures. So, as far as I can tell, the gas engine alone is making 105 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 and 95 horsepower at 5,200. The electric side of the system, which is MG2, which is the traction or movement motor for this car, makes 70 horsepower and 120 pound-feet of torque. And I was able to find some literature where Toyota claims that it makes 138 horsepower and 156 pound-feet of torque combined. All you need to know is that you are getting 120 pound-feet from zero from that electric motor. And then once the battery can't supply the charge to the motor in those amounts, then the engine comes online and you get the 105 pound-feet at, say, north of 40 miles an hour, around 60 kilometers an hour. Now, when you are just driving and putting around town in EV mode, you're gonna note, well, as I say, that the engine kicks on, but what you are gonna notice is just how smooth and quiet everything is. It's really, really nice during the commute to have brakes from the 4-cylinder rattle. It's really nice to just take a break and have it feel like the car is taking a break with you. And as we head over some of this really broken pavement, we'll see those sidewalls come into play. Yeah, on pavement like this, the high sidewalls combined with the really soft ride just make this thing really comfortable and thoughtless over city pavement. You're not being beaten by potholes the whole time. It's really, really nice, I have to say. It's a huge departure from prior Corollas where I just remember the ride being so crashy and loud, and I generally find that with this one the impact noise is much better isolated. It's not crashy, it's not unrefined. It's really, really quite nice, especially for a car that, of course, doesn't have very much sound deadening material in it. So as far as equipment goes, you're getting Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, you're getting your digital gauge cluster, which the purists are going to say, oh, well, it's just cheaper to put that in. Yeah, it is, but in this case, I'm okay with it. I'm happy that it gives me some configurability. I can change the things that I'm seeing. I can get a tachometer in here, which is pretty nice. And it just makes it feel a little bit less like a base model. It helps to distract from the vinyl steering wheel, which it's all right. It still feels okay, but if you were to own this thing, it's tolerable. I just think that you'd need to put a steering wheel cover on it to make sure it doesn't get sticky or greasy or gross over time. Yeah, it might not have all of the bells and whistles of maybe a Hyundai Elantra or, you know, the material quality of a Honda Civic, but it is cheaper. You are able to actually get a base model hybrid, which you can't option for Honda or Hyundai. You have to get mid or top trim models in those cars to be able to just option the hybrid. Whereas this, yeah, you're able to get a base trim with a vinyl wheel for only, I think it's $2,000 more than the regular CVT LE version. Maybe boring isn't the right word for it. Maybe forgiving is. Because let's face it, if you're owning this thing, you might miss an oil change. And that's not the end of the world. If you're in a Chevy Trax with the 1.2 liter 3-cylinder turbo, yeah, you might have issues. But in this, yeah, you can run it a little bit long before changing the oil. And we are going to get onto the highway and see what our merging performance is going to look like. But thus far, we've achieved 4.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is insane. And I'm not really even trying either. Oh, the E-CVT just keeps the revs exactly where they need to be, and there's always that instant torque from the electric motor. Sorry guys, I cannot see. But yeah, boring. I don't know if boring is necessarily the right descriptor anymore. I think forgiving might be the way to go. Because this is something that you can maybe extend your service visits a little bit. It's not going to rinse you when the hybrid battery goes dead. It's not very big. It's only a kilowatt. The brake pads, I imagine, are cheap, and you're not going to run through them as quickly because you have regen to offset some of that consumable wear. I don't know, there's just not a whole lot to worry about. And you might say, oh, it's a CVT. No, this is an E-CVT. This has no belts and pulleys. This is literally just, think of it like a slice of an automatic transmission. An automatic transmission has a bunch of planetary gear sets. This has one. No clutches. Okay, well, it has the start-stop clutch, which is damped. But you have one planetary gear set, 2 electric motors, one for driving, one for controlling the ratios and start-stopping the engine, and the engine. So as far as moving parts are concerned, this has very, very few. And as far as reliability goes, this might be one of the most, not just efficient, but one of the most reliable powertrains on the planet. And you can see here that on the highway, even at higher speeds, I'm doing 87, which is around 50, and the engine's off. I'm just powered coasting. Fantastic. One of the things I'm pleasantly surprised about with this is that I thought with the lack of power from, well, the internal combustion engine, to be honest, I thought it was going to be much, much louder, much more intrusive, but it's really not. It is really so far removed from the driving experience because you've got dampening in the clutches for the start-stop system, you've got electric motors, very few moving parts. It's so smooth and so well calibrated. And yeah, it's just effortless. And while we're here, we are going to be able to see what our merging power looks like. All right. It does a pretty good job at getting out of its own way. It's not a fast car. It's in fact a very slow car, but the way that the power is delivered is really effortless. And I say effortless, and that's purely subjective, but for me, I'm not hearing a lot of engine wail. I'm not hearing it scream away. I'm not feeling a whole lot of vibrations that would indicate that it's working very hard. It just kind of spins up, does its thing, and there's just always power available. Anytime that the front wheels are spinning, MG2, the traction motor, is also always spinning. So assuming the battery is in its right state, you always have power. Mode. That's going to help slow us down. And honestly, it is kind of close to a sport mode because it brings the revs up, which means that the revs are a lot closer to vehicle speed. So this E-CVT doesn't have to flare up as much to get you that power. So say if I get on it and then get off it, it'll keep the revs high. And then it'll give me more sort of instant power, if you will. Those revs nice and high. Oh, that instant torque is perfect. Dive around here. And yes, even though the suspension is quite soft, you can kind of let it lean into a corner and set it, and then you can make adjustments from there. And because it doesn't weigh a massive amount, it only weighs 1,300 kilograms, the soft suspension is of no detriment to the handling. It allows you to get a feel for what the car is doing, the chassis is doing. It's more forgiving on more broken pavement surfaces. And just generally, I prefer a softer vehicle, but When you have a soft vehicle that's also heavy, that's where the handling can very quickly fall apart. When you have something like this that has a low enough center of gravity, it only weighs 1,300 kilograms, and yeah, it's a bit soft. It still handles well. Go back into B mode. We'll see we just got lane keep assist there, intervening. I found that those are a bit intrusive this week. Really trying to lean on regen to ease those friction brakes the best that I can, save on consumables. Yeah, no, this thing is not the worst thing to hustle around by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty solid. It handles well, it stays composed, it leans over, it sets into the corner, and then you can make your adjustments from there. Again, because it's so lightweight, you are able to make those adjustments without completely unsettling the vehicle. So you can see that instant torque there. When the car is in B mode, it keeps those revs really high, and then you just have instant power from both systems combined. That is really nice. We'll go into B mode here again to get off the highway. We're behind a Tesla, so we'll see what it can do. Not much, as it seems. This thing handles really surprisingly well for having such big sidewalls, for having such small tires. Not weighing a ton, it just does wonders for handling. It's actually fairly engaging. And like I've been saying, the E-CVT just has constant power all the time, so even if it's not in gear or doesn't sound like it's in gear, it always has power for you. It always has power to help stabilize the car. It's perfect. Now that we are getting off the highway, I can talk to you a little bit about my final thoughts. For something that has the Prius drivetrain and a Corolla body, you'd really think that I'd have to hate it. But really, it's not bad. It's a really pleasant place to be. It's very comfortable. The sidewalls, like I keep saying, are huge and soak up impacts. The suspension is nice and soft, but because the car is nice and light, it never feels floaty or big or boaty. The steering, although it is pretty lifeless, is quick enough to turn in that, again, the car never really feels big or cumbersome. The E-CVT always has power available, even if it isn't a lot, and you're able to get crazy, crazy good fuel economy. So yeah, I don't know that there are really very many downsides other than in name only. If you can get over the stigma that you're driving a Corolla Hybrid, this is a fantastic car. And the interior is not as bad as I was anticipating. It's actually very lovely. You've got soft touch materials where it counts. Yes, the door cards are a bit low rent, but generally the touch points, this is vinyl and soft, this is soft, this is soft. The seats are very comfortable and soft. They're supportive, they're well bolstered. You've got all the information that your heart could desire in the gauge cluster and in the infotainment. They're not overwhelming or distracting to use. They're all very simple, very easy. You've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, air conditioning that runs even when the engine is off. And as far as cost of ownership goes, you're getting 50 or above miles per gallon without really trying, let's be fair. And very, very, very few moving parts in the transmission. One of the most reliable transmissions on the face of the planet, if you can get over the fact that they just don't shift. But yeah, like, I see these with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kilometers on them, and they all still seem to be selling for, quite honestly, more than I think they're worth at that mileage. But It means if you get into one of these things, you're not going to be taking a huge dump on depreciation. It's still going to hold its value. It's going to be a decent thing to drive long term. And when it does need repairs, it's not going to totally rinse you or leave you stranded. I think this thing is a really solid choice. It has fully changed my mind. And with that, 4.4 liters per 100 kilometers, I think I'll see you guys in the next one.